the questions where I can see the questions?
Yes, these are the questions. And here students will post
They'll
the
post the
questions.
questions. 7 p.m.
Yeah, but we are live, sir. Now you can start, sir. These are the questions, sir.
Shall I start?
Yes, sir. You can start, sir.
Welcome you all to the live session. So there are already few questions which have been asked. The first question is Sweta. Sir, I am doing project on this domain. How can I contact you in future? So kindly share your details. Well, I am at IIT-kanpur in the Department of Biological Science, Bioengineering and Design program. You can contact me via email. Next question, Sham Arfat MN. I would like to know that manufacturing in nanoparticle for agriculture will be feasible in terms of cost for a developing nation. Yes, nanoparticle synthesis is a reasonably economical process. It is just, it needs to be scaled up. Once the scaling up happens, it will be a very economically sustainable route for future developments. And there are tremendous amount of work going on where at low temperature a wide array of applicable nanomaterials are being synthesized across the world. The next question by Pavitra P. What is happening now at present in nanomaterial for the agriculture? So there are multiple areas of research where aggressively people are looking. One of the areas are encapsulating the known fertilizer in nanostructures, say for example phosphorus, nitrogen or potash, putting them in some kind of a slow releasing gel, like something like when you put the drug in some kind of encapsulated structures. Next, the area where there is tremendous amount of application is in the post-harvest technology, preservation of fruits and vegetables, especially the ones which are perishable ones. The another area is in animal production. The emerging area is on seed treatment agent and root treatment agents. Similarly, if you extend your imagination a little further in the area of water purification, then the area of pollution control, where a lot of toxic hazard materials are being destroyed using different nanostructures. And if you extend your imagination even further, you will see a lot of energy production in terms of using nanoparticle based systems for degradation of cellulosic materials, for bioenergy, as well as for different kind of solar photovoltaic applications. Okay. Varsha K, the next question is, sir, are the final exam question we asked from the assessment? Varsha, as far as I know, there will be certain number of questions which are designated from the assignment section. Next question by Shobeka Devi. What is effective way to reach out in the nanotechnology based farming to the farmers in India? So they call it from lab to the field, which is the extension work. Eventually, we are soon approaching a point where most of the agriculture universities will take up extension activities of popularizing the newer technologies of nanotechnology application in agriculture to the farmers. So it's a kind of multi-tiered processes. First, your experimental findings are being tested out by the farmers. Then there are companies who takes up those technologies and scale them up, and again they get back to the farmers. Then there is a costing issues involved with it, whether that technology development or technology dissemination will be handled by the government and what kind of subsidies government is going to offer, or it will be exclusively the right of the companies who will be dealing with it. So there are a lot of processes, but the key point is it happens through extension education, where the technologies which are developed in agriculture universities or agriculture institution or any other research where agricultural development happens, which needed to be brought to the farmers, goes through the extension activities, where you have to go through the socio-psychological aspect of the farmers, their acceptability quotient, their openness for new technologies, and most importantly, is the technology economical for them and how much benefit they are earning. I can tell you one thing: farmers are exceptionally intelligent people, exceptionally intelligent, and they can pick up the cost benefit ratio much faster than one think or one perceives. So if once you explain them the newer technologies, and they will immediately do a mind calculation, they can tell you whether they want it or not and what is the cost. And another aspect which I wish to highlight: in India, the farmers are now very much aware about the hazards which is being caused by the application of wide array of chemicals. Okay, so nanotechnology is a way to look forward to cut down on the use of costly chemicals in the form of fertilizer, pesticides, weedicides, as well as making the farming, making the soil much more sustainable. And thirdly, another area where nanotechnology will make a huge inroad will be, this is a technology which can challenge many of the genetically driven technologies, where you can increase production by simple agronomic practice by utilizing nanomaterials instead of going for hybrid varieties or genetically engineered varieties. Next question, Tauba Adil. No queries right now. Okay. Next question is by Dinesh. The course benefits and work. Thank you. Next question by Imad Aid. I am from Palestine. It don't succeed in paying the fees. Okay, dear. You kindly contact the NPTEL office or the forum. Possibly the NPTEL office. They will be able to help you in this regard. All the best. Next question, Mr. Jha, Daijal Kumari Jha, or I'm sorry, I think this is Miss Jha. Thank you for your compliment. Next question is Vishalashi. When will the dream day will come true? What about the current research to make the D-day come true? What is the simplest and affordable way to synthesize nanomaterials? Well, one thing, let me tell you that we are evolving. So there is nothing called a D-Day as such. When humankind first discovered rhizobium, they felt, oh wow, that is a way we can fix nitrogen. Next came the landmark discovery when nitrogen fertilizer was being developed in the industrial level, followed by a use of wide array of other fertilizer in the form of phosphorus and potash. Then came the breakthrough works in terms of door varieties, which eventually culminated into in the form of green revolution. And in between, there are several insecticide, pesticides development which happens, weedicides. Now, by the end of the last century, we again came back to the drawing board, where we realized, oh, we need to look back, because the productivity of the soil is being compromised. The air is getting polluted. The water bodies are getting contaminated. So now again we are on the drawing board. Again there will be breakthroughs. Again there will be problems. So it will be a continuous process. As long as human intelligence will explore things, we will always have technologies which will be coming as a double-edged sword. So there will be many, many D-days as we'll be evolving as a race. Secondly, the other question what you have asked, what are the affordable ways? One of the criteria one has to keep in mind, any kind of synthesis process, whatever we use, has to utilize least amount of energy. It should be energy optimized process, which is a major problem in Haber-Bosch process of nitrogen fertilizer ammonia synthesis. It's an energy intensive process. So in nanotechnology, we have to always look for methods, technologies which will consume lesser amount of energy. Next question, Sangar Begzat, his suggestions for MSc thesis. Well, I won't be able to answer this question in this forum. Next is Rohit Surek. I would like to know your perspective on the future services in agriculture, especially related to consultancy services, organic, nano, micro, nutrition, biofertilizer. Well, Rohit, this is one of the prominent areas across the world where there is always a need for people who can make very correct suggestion. But one thing I must tell you, one has to have a wide expertise in field work before one can make suggestions, because your suggestions decides the fate of or the economy of families of farmers. So it is almost like you are almost playing a critical role in their economic development. There are a series of consultancies which are happening in, they are either in the form of big companies or individually. Okay, thank you. These are the questions. What?
Sir, 3 more questions are asked through the Google Form.
Okay,
Can I
I'm
open it,
getting
sir?
to the forum.
Yeah.
Okay, the forum. Bhushan Kotwal, can nanotechnologies take place for pesticide, herbicide? Absolutely, Bhushan. There is a lot of work which are going on currently in developing nano formulation for pesticides, so that you do not have to use a huge amount of pesticides or insecticide or weedicides, and such material may be much more potent as compared to the existing ones. Second question, but while Bhushan, let me close this question of yours. One has to be very careful to go through the environmental protection agencies, because whenever we are using anything new, a thorough understanding that how that material is going to affect the human physiology is exceptionally important, because any material what you are using on the crop eventually gets consumed by humankind, and if we are not fully aware about the physiological fate of such materials, one can be in trouble. Okay. Bhushan, you have a next question, sir. Please answer the questions on NPTEL forum. Okay, I have answered your question here. Anil Kumar HS NMAMIT, sir, what is the fate of nanoparticle in plant once accumulated? Well, I'll cite few examples. Say, for example, if you are non-vegetarian, or even if you're vegetarian, we all have seen roasted vegetables or roasted meat. You see the blackening. With that blackening is nothing but carbon nanoparticles. Those are carbon structures which gets into your body, gets accumulated, and then throws out. And as a matter of fact, they help in kind of movement of a lot of material across the gut. Okay, so depending on what kind of nanomaterial it is, the fate is being decided. But since the amount is pretty less, unless otherwise it is inherently very toxic, generally it forms part of the inclusion bodies within the cell and kind of gets slowly degenerated. But yeah, if you're using something like a cadmium nanoparticle or something arsenic nanoparticle, then it will be a very different story. But otherwise, the benign ones like sulfur, iron, say carbon, magnesium, calcium, they are mostly harmless. Okay. Next question, Mr. Upadhyay, nanoparticles are also toxic. How to deal with toxicity of nanoparticle? How to reduce toxicity to minimize the impact on ecosystem? So, Mr. Bhushan, this question about toxicity is depending on how much you are using and how much you are aware of its toxicity in terms of physiological testing. So if I say that we are using fertilizer, insecticides, pesticide for last more than almost a century now, whereas when we talk about the nanoparticles, we are talking about something which are much more benign, carbon, say for example. So toxicity depends at what amount we are talking about. When you are using something at a very higher concentration, yes, but anything in a excess will be toxic. But otherwise, our lifestyle, or as a matter of fact, for last 100 years, if you look at it, we consume a whole range of things. Even if you think of aerosols in the air, we get adapted to it. But yeah, excess of it could be a problem. Okay. Next question you have Rag Bandana Nayak. Sir, I learned many things from your lecture. I'm trying some work. Kindly answer my doubt I posted today. Okay, I will look into it, or you can email me. That will be a better idea. Chemistry for Good by Malini Bapat. How do we measure concentration of nanomaterials, say silver, in a formulation? So there are multiple ways. It's the same way as in inorganic chemistry you estimate silver. That is one way you can estimate it, or you can even go for ICP-MS analysis. You can measure the amount. If you really want to go to an extremely ppm or ppb level, I will recommend that you may prefer to do an ICP-MS analysis. That will give you a better idea. Do all nanoparticles behave like APS2? No, not at all. Is used for seed priming? No, not at all. Every nanoparticle has its inherent properties and inherent qualities, and they have a unique way of interacting with any biological systems. So APS2 works in a different way. Similarly, carbon nanoparticle works in a different way. Molybdenum works in a different way. Magnesium works in a different way. Similarly, silver acts very differently than the others. So they have different kind of applications depending on the situation and with what kind of life form they're interacting. Next question, Aishwarya Ji. Sir, what is the current state of APS2 nanoparticles to seed treatment in agriculture? I have already discussed this, but just to reiterate it, currently through the field trial, it has been observed in both major grain crops like rice and wheat. It has shown tremendous potential. In a field trial in pulses, especially with chickpea, it has been observed that it enhances rhizobium growth. In other words, you are fixing more nitrogen. In heavy feeder vegetables of the winter months, like cauliflower, cabbage, it shows very positive result in terms of root treatment. So these are the crops which are being transplanted. So from the nurseries, the vegetable farmers buy these crops from the nursery. So if you root treat them, just like you do seed treatment, but instead of seed treatment, which is 12 hours, we do this root treatment for 3 hours before transplanting them to the field. It has been observed that they enhance the growth in the absence of any form of fertilizers. Similarly, with the other crops, especially the oil seeds and other vegetables, green vegetable, spices, and even in the flour production, very promising results have been observed during the last 1 year or so. Next question, Rishikesh. What is the current status of application and controlling plant pathogens? Yes, this is one area. There is a lot of work going on because people are trying to reduce, especially there are a few works from agriculture, Punjab Agriculture PAU, Ludhiana, where they are showing that treating certain sulfides, metal sulfides at the seed level reduces the infection of blight and other things. You may love to look at those papers, which are very, very promising work from India. I've just forgotten the name of the authors. There's a lady who is working in that area. Fantastic piece of work. So you may love to look at those work, and there are several other work which are happening, especially with tomato in the Western Hemisphere, and there are other part of the world, there are several works which are happening. This just came directly in my mind. I thought of sharing this with you. So yes, there is a lot of work which are happening in order to reduce down on the use of chemicals through seed treatment or root treatment, and reducing the or decreasing the possibility of pathogen infestation. Malini Bapat, are nanomaterials being used in hydroponics? Yes, Malini. Hydroponics, there is a wonderful paper which I just top of my head I do not remember. It came from India only, which is probably one of the very first paper in RSC Advances, where they grew hydroponic system for spinach, if I remember it right. And I don't exactly remember. I know the work came from Tamil Nadu. Or was it from the Agriculture University or from some other university? I do not remember, but it was a RSC Advances paper. Kindly look into it. Top of my head again, I do not remember it, but this is a beautiful piece of paper. I think 4-5 years back, if I remember it right. There's a very nice paper in hydroponics, and those are not very many papers, but this is definitely the, you can say, very first, very early work. Or if I haven't missed out, maybe the very first work. Okay. Fusion, what is it, which and how nanoparticle can be used in cotton, groundnut, pigeon pea? So pigeon pea is your legume crop. It could happen in the seed treatment. Groundnut also could be used. Cotton is again a very interesting crop, especially in the central India, all the way from Malwa region and down. It hasn't been tried out, but I'm pretty confident that it may bring some very interesting results in cotton. My email ID, Raghavan Nayak. You can go to IIT-kanpur website and the BSB and the design department. You'll see my email ID there. Okay.
So 3 questions came through the Google form. Can I open this?
Yeah, sure. Sure.
Kotpal Bhushan has asked these 3 questions, sir. And then Malini, these questions.
Malini Bapat has asked this question: why do nanomaterials like CNT, AG, Fe, and MO, etc., favor increase in percent germination? shoot root growth, etc., how they mimic NPK actions. Okay, Malini, and to answer your first question, NPK activity starts much later, and if these nanoparticles, say carbon nanotubes, sulfur, your silver, iron, or molybdenum paper increase in germination percentage and root shoot ratio, that means you are basically giving these plants a booster dose. It's just like if you have a baby, if you have two set of babies, one who may give a booster dose of growth in the beginning with some form of very energy rich materials, where the other one is not being provided. So what will happen? The baby who is getting these energy rich materials will grow faster, and if it grows faster, it will consume or it will efficiently utilize NPK. Similarly, a kid who is not fortified with all those initial material which they needed at the very early phase of their growth, they won't be able to utilize the material that efficiently. In the competition, the healthier kid will run ahead of it. It is something like that. How we can actually analyze concentration of nanomaterial present in agroformulation, say sulfur and gold. So I told you ICP-MS could be a choice in your case. What nanomaterials are used for hydroponics? I have seen Fe2O3, one of the hydroponics materials which has been used, but you have to look further. Kotwal Bhushan Dattare, how do we educate farmers for nanotechnology and its importance and uses? Your best bet will be discuss this with KVKs, Krishi Vigyan Kendras, or get in touch with, if you're already in touch with extension departments of the regional agriculture universities. Government of India for last 50, say 60 years, I must say, and especially with amazing activity of ICAR, Indian Council of Agricultural Research across the country, have developed one of the most amazing network of extension activities, and that is one of the biggest reason that today we are self-sufficient in terms of agriculture production. So I'm pretty confident in the years to come, much of these agro universities, their department extension education will take up these issues, and you can all personally venture into this area where they continuously read or monitor the demands of the farmers, what they needed, and how they can translate the newer and newer technologies. And by the way, farmers are extremely interested and keeping a very close eye on these developments. Tell us about the procedure pre-seed treatment for cereals, pulses, fodder crops, and other crops. So 1 hectare. Okay. So this is the situation. First of all, you have to realize the dose what you needed, say per ml, and then say for example I say for 1 hectare I needed say 100 kg of seeds. I'm just giving a random number. Okay. Now you have to figure out for 1 kg of seed sowing how much liquid I need, and in that liquid how much material I have to add, because that will be your mother formulation. So similarly you have to jack up the story that for 1 hectare, if I need 100 kg of seed, for 1 kg I need this much, so I have to soak that much of it. So you can do it in two ways. Either you can soak 100 kg in one vessel, which is kind of not advisable. Rather you have 1 kg of smaller vessels where you can swirl it and so that the seeds get exposed to it. So mostly, as far as I have seen, or at least from my own research, I say 12 hours of treatment. So tomorrow morning you want to sow the seed, this evening you soak the seed in nano formulations. But I'm pretty sure there will be people who prefer to do it for 1 hour or 2 hours, depending on it. All depends which nanomaterial and what is the effectiveness. That's where comes the need for the research to optimize those timing, the amount, how much it has to be. Now when it comes to really commercializing it, say farmer will not have a weighing balance to measure these kind of things. So you may have to provide a pouch, something like a small pouch where you say you mix this much in this much of water. The instructions have to be written very clearly. So those are the problems of design, where you really, how you are going to go to the farmers. The farmer is not going to measure all those things. You give them in a small pouch, they will mix it, and this much seed you should have to add. They may, at the max they will just measure this amount of seeds, okay, 1 kg or half a kg or 100 kg, whatsoever it is, okay. So this is how one has to move in that direction. Next question is why, okay, now this I have already said, could he repair dead cells and bring them to life? uh, Mr. Ponsiva or Miss Ponsiva, I do not have an answer to this. Could he bring a dead cell to life? But I can tell you that a fortification can prevent death, but whether a dead can be brought to life by nanotechnology or any, as a matter of fact, any technology, dear, I am not aware of, and I'm not the right person to even answer this question. What is the role of so Kotwal, you have another question. What is the role of nanotechnology in precision integrated modern greenhouse aquaponics farming? So when you talk about precision farming, so the basic idea of precision farming is that how to optimize. So say for example, a plant needs, say, I'm giving again a random number, so I say 5 molecules of some X agent. So generally when we scatter the stuff in the field, we give 100 molecules. We don't even know who is using what. Instead, the precision farming demands that we should provide that much amount in that area. So this could be, you can scale it up, you can say in that area, say for example, I say I am in place X, someone very close by is in Y, but both X and Y are using same amount of nitrogen fertilizer because they are very close by. But fact of the matter is that place in X, the soil may have more nitrogen as compared to place in Y. Just because geographically they are close by, what's the point having a uniform dose? But last 50 years of most of the agriculture research across the world have this generic way, this much. So if you pull out any textbook of agronomy, say in Indian context, if you pull out Professor Chidda Singh's agronomy textbook, or any, as a matter of fact, any GC-based agronomy textbook, you'll see these chapters. For rice, for this variety, this much nitrogen, phosphorus, potash, sulfur has to be used. Now the thing is that they are perfectly right, that is what is needed, but a farmer needs to first of all test his or her own land, how much they are having, how much they really need to add. And this is where comes the whole area of precision farming, where through remote sensing and other different techniques of soil testing, intensive soil testing, now we are narrowing down. We say yes, this crop needs this much, but depending on your soil type, someone will recommend that you should use this much because your soil already has. So now when you are telling me about precision integrated modern greenhouse aquaponic culture, this is all the more important that you develop technologies, and these are technologies which you have to develop based on your common sense and through experience. Okay? So I think I have answered most of the question what has been asked there. Okay. Right. This is Mr. Naik, how to make nanoparticle in powder form and nano emulsion, for example nanosilica, nanosilver. Okay, answer is very simple. How you make powder? I give you a jaggery. You break it. The more you break it, the more it will become finer. I give you sugar. You put it in a grinder, you grind it, it will become powder sugar. Okay? Exactly the same logic holds true. How you can break a particle to as small as you want to go. Either you break it chemically or you do it mechanically. Now that's up to you how you do it. So the logics, if you put the physical logics, it's very straightforward. But then how far you want to go is your choice. Okay? And how you want to do it. I have tried making nano compounds, biofilms for packaging metal, but it becomes fragile while casting. Very interesting. Very nice. So you realize that not everything can be brought to nano because of a simple reason, self-assembly. Say for example, I give you a very simple example. I say, in this room I can accommodate 100 people. Beyond 100 I can't, because in this room there will be so much carbon dioxide accumulation that people will start to suffer. Exactly something like that. How many molecules you can brought in one cluster? There are compounds where you can make sheets, yet there are atoms and compounds which cannot grow beyond a certain dimension. So in your case, possibly, what you try to do, you reach to that physiological or physical limits, not physiological, sorry, pardon me, physical limits of how much self-assembling you can do. Maybe where you are seeing the breaking zone is they are not yet ready to be self-assembled. Maybe you have to do some chemical modifications that you can bind them together as a long sheet-like structure or something. Otherwise, within the given limits, they will form small islands, what you are seeing, small islands, and they're breaking apart, they're fragile. Maybe you have to do something else. But you have to keep the logics. It is about self-assembling. When you are making big materials, you have to be very careful. Okay. There are a lot of questions there. Okay. Is it?
Disease aware from
Where? Okay. Are the nanoparticles used for hydroponics and push and cool by nanoparticles? Cotton, I have answered this. Email ID, have okay. Anil Kumar. What is the regulatory frame to use nanoparticle in agriculture? Where are the oh, okay. Well, one second. How do I get rid of? Okay. Mr. Anil Kumar, as far as I know, ICR very recently had formulated the guidelines for use of nanomaterial, but if you honestly ask me, I do not know in which websites they are keeping it, but I am aware of it, that there is a national consortium which is working on setting up guidelines of what could be put in the soil, what could be put in the water bodies, what could be what could be used for the animal production, in case of nanomaterial for animal production. Top of my head, I do not know where Government of India has like documented it online, but there is a strong move which is going on to put the guidelines together during the last 5 to 6 years, which I am aware of very thoroughly. Next question, Murli.
Yes.
Sir, we studied last class about the dye-sensitized solar cell. What is the mechanism of that? It's very straightforward here. This is Aishwarya Ji. So dye-sensitized means, so if you think of photosynthesis, so you have a dye which is a green dye called chlorophyll. So chlorophyll is kind of a solar cell. So similarly, there are several molecules in nature which absorb sunlight and emits electrons. So dye-sensitized solar cell is basically using a dye, either a synthetic dye or a natural dye, and which absorbs certain bandwidth of light and eject an electron, and you capture that electron and you flow it through a circuit, and that's how you generate electricity. It's a simple solar cell, but using a dye. Okay. So next question is Rishikesh Upadhyay. Sir, what is perspective of zinc oxide nanoparticles? Zinc has been used for multiple purpose. So it all depends on for what exact application you want to use, dear. Like top of my head, I can't tell you unless I know your application, but it has a lot of perspective in terms of pesticides and several other applications. Anshat KP, what are the problems the nanoparticle can adapt farmer? No, it is, let me tell you, Anshat, the area of nanomaterials in agriculture is not even properly 10 years old. It is way too early. It is not even, it's just conceived area. This is just now people I'm seeing because that things are happening. So it will take some time, dear, before a technology really gains momentum, but I assure you it is going to gain momentum very fast, very soon. Next is Asharita Madhipali. Good and kindly explained, sir. T and Q. Kindly explanation, sir. T. Asha, thank you. Okay, thank you. Aishwarya Ji, sir, what are the importance of nanomaterials in agriculture? I've already discussed this thoroughly. Only?
Yes, sir.
Good.
Yes, sir.
Actually,
That's all. Yes.
that's it. That's it. Any more questions, or shall we conclude it?
Maybe we can wait for 2 minutes, sir.
Sure.
In case they are not posting anything, we will wind up.
Sure, sure.
Yes.
Does this live session come online?
Yes, sir.
Is it there online?
Yes, it is online,
Oh,
sir.
okay. Great. Rishi, what is the main principles of functionalization of nanomaterials? Okay, Rishikesh, the concept of functionalization comes what kind of functionality you want to introduce. Say, for example, I have something which is not really soluble in water. So what I will do, I will increase its hydroxyl groups. Okay, if I increase its hydroxyl group, once it will come in contact with water, it will form hydrogen bonds and it will become much more soluble. So depending on what kind of functionality you want to introduce, you have to functionalize it. Say, for example, I want to make something very hydrophobic. Okay, so if I have to make it something hydrophobic, I have to add something which is a water heating molecule, right? Something where the water will kind of repel from it. So I'll functionalize it with that particular XYZ molecule, but of course I have to find out a site where I can couple that molecule onto it. Once I couple that and its whole surface is decorated with such hydrophobic molecule, the material will become hydrophobic. Similarly, for hydrophilicity, I have to decorate the whole surface with OH groups and all other things. So similarly, if you want a specific kind of reactions to happen, you have to decorate the molecule in a certain way. Okay. Dr. Vaishali Lade, hello sir, is there any difference between CNP formed by grinding and by burning organic matter? Yes, there are differences, because when you're grinding it, you have a very pure form of carbon nanoparticles, but when you are burning the organic matter, you may have other materials, other atoms which are present there. So you just have to do an ICP-MS study to figure out what are the other or I won't say use the word contamination, what are the other atoms which are present in the nanomatrix of carbon nanoparticles. Right? Oh, that's your message.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I
Yes, sir.
see that. Do you edit the live session?
No, sir, we don't edit.
Bhushan
But in-
Kodwal, can nanoparticle be eco-friendly? Well, I have few simple things for you to ponder upon. For, I think, centuries or many centuries, human beings are consuming roasted vegetable, roasted meat. During roasting, if nothing but the whole cover is formed of the blackening, what you see is carbon nanoparticle. Similarly, many of you use kajal in the eyes. That is nothing but nanoparticle. So through centuries, through ages, we have been using nanoparticle. And not only that, if you go back in the history, you will see that there are a lot of sharpening agents which are made of nanoparticle. So if you ask me, in a very simplest way, if you look at the molecules which are working in biological systems, they are all far and below the nano regime. They're in angstrom range. So I believe, if you ask me on a very professional note, I would say, how much really we know unless we explore. And if we explore, it's almost like atomic energy. Yes, atomic energy, nuclear energy, it has its positives and negatives. It will always have it. But it's up to us how far we want to push a technology. Okay. Next question is Mr. Naveen Kumar. Sir, accumulation of nanoparticle into the animals and humans through environment, is there any technology is developed to retrieve these nanoparticles? So, well, Naveen, the thing is that nanomaterials do not remain in isolation. There are so many polymers in our body, lipid polymers, protein polymers, carbohydrate polymers. They get entangled in them and they are mostly excreted out from the body, or kind of remain there and either become inactive or keep on circulating and doing its job, whatever it is assigned for or believed to be assigned for. So it is not, it's almost like I said that I have taken this much aspirin, the one which is not being used, how could I retrieve it? Possibly the answer is no. How you could retrieve it really? So same way, these molecules, these things cannot be really retrieved as such. Can we functionalize spermidine to zinc? If you give it a shot, Rishikesh, of course you can, but depending on where you really want to functionalize it. I mean, say which part of the atom you want to functionalize it. Technically, You can functionalize anything and everything. You may have to use a cross-linker, you may have to use a in-between bridge kind of molecules which attaches to the zinc oxide, what you are mentioning here. If I, is it zinc oxide? Let me just check. Yeah, you are talking about zinc oxide, yeah. So wherever you are attaching, depending on how you want to, couple it. But then you have to look at the chemistry, how you can functionalize it. Anshed KP, what role can do nanoparticle is to avoiding use of insecticide and herbicides? Well, there may be certain nanomaterials which may not be liked by the insects. They may have a repulsive activity, or consuming those nanomaterial may not be something they can enjoy. They can refrain from coming to the plants. Secondly, if you bring down the insecticide and herbicides to a level in the form of nanoformulation, that at a very smaller dose you can get an effective results. So it all depends that the more we do experiments in an unbiased way, we will develop the field. Lesser we do out of skepticism, will be falling behind. So the only way to do these things and figure out is by doing experiments. There is no shortcut. There is no predictive algorithm which can tell you that avoiding or accepting. Okay, this is a choice we have. One thing I can tell as a generic note to all of you is that it's a simple chemistry and physics. There's nothing more to it. And these things were there since time immemorial. Okay. So next question, Anil Kumar, sir, can we use these nanoparticles to diagnose plant health systems? Technically, yes, if you ask me, because you could put a tag on them and say, for example, the plant is suffering from some kind of, say, some microbial infection. So you have an antibody for that. And if the nanoparticle gets through the root into the xylem phloem vessel, and if it reaches to that particular site, it binds, and if it glows or it shows some marker, then you will be able to figure it out. So say, for example, you have a nanoparticle which has this antibody which travels along your root and shoot, reaches to that site, it coupled to that particular infected site, and upon coupling you have some chemistry there which will make it glow. You'll be able to see this. But this is all, again, as I'm mentioning, it is all about how many times you are ready to embrace failure of doing such tricky, tough experiments. But if you ask me, is it possible? Of course, the sky is the limit. Or maybe far beyond the sky is the limit. We just don't know. I mean, these are just, if you look at the development of nitrogen fertilizer, it's just 100, not even 100 years properly, right? Just 100 years. A green revolution is just 50 years. 100 years, just even 50 years back, people were not using any fertilizers. And in an evolution of 4 billion years, how we know what all has happened. Naveen, who is the next question, is biologically synthesized nanoparticles show toxicity. How can we reduce its toxicity nature? First of all, Naveen, toxicity has to be defined very clearly, that what level are we talking about. I give you again a simple example. You are walking on the road, there are aerosols, there are so many things. Yes, they are toxic, but our body has certain degree of tolerance limits. We all have, and that's how we have evolved through billions of years. So when you talk about there is nothing, even excess of water could be toxic. You understand my point? So we have to realize that what toxicity are we talking about, at what level we are talking about. If we cannot decide that level, then the whole concept of toxicity can become very vague. So unless we know at what amount, whichever we synthesize, doesn't matter, biologically, non-biologically, or synthetic route, high temperature route, low temperature route, excess of anything is bad. So if we judiciously understand the chemistry and biology and the physics, then we will be able to answer the question. But based on certain belief, based on certain other paradigm, that this is toxic, we won't be able to really solve a problem. If something they say is toxic, if something they say is challenging, then one has to face it. It's also like nuclear thing. People use nuclear energy for electricity production, but there could always be a possibility that we may suffer from Chernobyl like disaster, but that does not mean we still stop as a race. Or we use coal causes a lot of aerosols, but if you look at the history of humankind, it is the coal from where the steam and everything happened, the whole industrial revolution, but still we do. So it is something like one has to define it clearly and not based on certain belief. Simple sitting and doing experiments, hands-on experiments with a test tube to figure it out what is really toxicity is all about. Okay.
Can we conclude, sir? Questions?
Answer.
Yeah.
There's no further question.
Yes, sir. So you can conclude, sir.
Okay, so I'm concluding here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, sir. 2 minutes, sir. I'm coming, sir. Shutting down and coming.